Though joining us, he is rested, he is ready, he's back from his vacation. It is Thom Hartmann, legendary radio host, of course, noon to 3 p.m. on this very channel, best-selling author of various books, including his last book, The Last American President, and his Substack, which you should sign up for. It is excellent. I read it literally every day. Substack.com, Thom Hartmann. Tom, nice to see you. Welcome back to the States.
Hey, thanks, Dean. It's Hartmann Report, by the way.
Hartmann Report. I was just looking at the actual URL that I actually copied off of the page. But yes, of course, the Hartmann Report. I read it every day. So you got back into America, still a little bit of concern that you weren't going to...
We did, yeah. Well, I sent you my email. You know, you're my lawyer friend. And you know, if I call you from an ICE facility, you know, assuming they let me use a phone, you know, please get ready. And you were, as always, so kind to say, yeah, okay, I'll go out there and kick ass for you.
Tom made it. He made it back. Thank goodness. We didn't want to be hosting like 6 hours a day. They're like, Dean, can you do 12 to 3 and 6 to 9? I'm like, no, I want Tom back. So, Tom, I just had a MAGA guy. Name is Ken from Tennessee. And he called up in the beginning. His whole point was the reason that Zoran and Trump got along was that they were civil. It wasn't... I was saying earlier that Zoran used the magical Muslim power we have to get people to like
I read your op-ed today.
Right, so that was my, yeah. So he goes, no, there's no mesmerization. People are just civil. And you know, we obviously disagree on certain things, but what we got to is that the steak in a food store is $20. Or either $26 or $28. Ridiculous. It's outrageous, the prices of food vegetarian. Right now. But also you have, you know, Democrats talking affordability, Donald Trump for the longest time denying it, just saying prices are lower, blah, blah, blah. That's not reality. You can't lie to people about what they're paying. But getting to the message of economic populism, do you think there's a chance there for Democrats to run on the message of economic populism and get people, like even maybe like a Ken from Tennessee, to vote for us?
Yes. Yes. I mean, it worked for FDR. It worked for LBJ. It worked for Jack Kennedy. You know, I think it frankly largely worked for Joe Biden. You know, although his ability to communicate was so incompetent, so bad during his administration, and I think he was poorly served by his press secretaries. But you know, yeah, absolutely. I think the two big issues that Democrats need to be focusing on are, number one, affordability, and number two, immigration reform. I don't know if you caught the piece in the New York Times today or saw, what's his name, on Sunday morning on CNN. Anyway, he's a commentator who writes a piece for the Washington Post, and his whole piece was about how in Denmark they've tightened up immigration, you know, and they're cracking down on employers who hire people who aren't there without documentation, and they're making it, you know, they're still taking legitimate asylum seekers and you know, immigrants who have some basis to want to immigrate to Denmark, but basically they're closing their country. And now you've got the and what it did was it took away all the power from the Conservative Party. So the moderates and the progressives are getting reelected because they're all agreeing. They're all saying, yeah, you know, let's you know, Denmark for the Danes, you know, America for the Americans. And you know, this is a position that's long been the position of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, frankly. And I think that and the economic populism, affordability, you know, the rent's too damn high. I think those two issues would just knock it out of the park.
Well, why do you think immigration would be such a winner in that case? Like,
because it's the foundation of Trump's base. You know, it is. Trump started his campaign on immigration. He came down the escalator and started ranting about Mexicans. It's been the one single throughput through his entire administration. It has allowed him to create this secret police force. It has caused Americans to tolerate the brutality and violence that ICE and CBP are inflicting on even American citizens. It is, you know, I acknowledge that an awful lot of the immigration hysteria on the right is driven by just good old-fashioned racism. But I don't think it's even 50%. I think that it's another aspect of economic populism. You know, I read in 2010, I published a book called Rebooting the American Dream. Bernie Sanders, it was 14 chapters, 14 Steps to Reclaim America. And there was a chapter about, national health care but there was a chapter about immigration. It was called Put Lou Dobbs Out to Pasture. And it was serialized over on
I
Truth.
remember Lou Dobbs, yeah.
Yeah, well, I used to go on his show because I agreed with
Oh,
him by and large, except that his motivation was racism, and mine was, economic populism. And Bernie, was like into this, and in fact, he gave a copy. He had me get 100 copies of the book, and he gave one to each one of his 99 Senate colleagues, along with a personal cover letter saying, "You need to
wow.
read this book, the Rebooting the American Dream." And in that chapter, I pointed out that number one, cultures and countries can't survive rapid or large changes in population. It disrupts things too badly. But more importantly, prior to Reagan's so-called reforms, and actually the Immigration Act of '86, I think it was, did have some really good, significant reforms. But prior to that, we used to arrest employers who hired people who were here without documentation. And Reagan stopped that practice. And it's been the Republicans. Every time a Democrat comes into office, the Republicans go out there and start yelling about open borders, saying that the border is wide open. And what they're really doing is they're saying to people south of the border, hey, come on in. And I once wrote a piece for Hartmann Report a year or two ago where I went through and I did the research, and I just the first year of the Biden administration and the first year of the Obama administration, there were like 40 different hot links I could give you to Republicans publicly saying the border is now open. Basically, it wasn't when the Republicans. And what happens? Boom! You get 10,000 people a day coming through this border that they believe is now open. So this is an issue that Republicans have been demagoguing. They have been the cause of the immigration crisis by and large, because they've been pushing people to come to the United States during Democratic administrations so they can squeal about it. And we need to take the damn issue away from them. And that's what Chris Murphy, who's one of the most progressive members of the Senate, he negotiated this deal with Jim Langford, who's an old-fashioned Barry Goldwater conservative, the Republican from Oklahoma. They negotiated a pretty damn good piece of legislation that actually increased deportations, but only of immigrants who've been convicted of crimes, that punished employers who hired people here without documentation. That's the big magnet, of course. That tightened our asylum laws so that people couldn't claim asylum unless they had, a legitimate, provable case. It's gotten really sloppy since the '80s. And it was good stuff. There were some things that were a little more conservative than Murphy was comfortable with, and some things that were a little more liberal than Langford was comfortable with. But they worked it out. And in fact, the piece I'm going to publish tomorrow on Hartmann Report is calling on everybody to reach out to their members of Congress and say, we need comprehensive immigration reform. We need to take this issue away from Donald Trump. We need to take it away from Stephen Miller. Have Congress stop the brutality. That's
interesting. I'm chatting with our friend Thom Hartmann. To me, I guess it would have to be what the details are of any legislation in changing it. And I know you're not suggesting we become Republicans on the issue. There's something in between where we could have a strong border, have more security at the border, but still have a compassionate programs in terms of asylum and people trying to make a new life here. But I don't know any I'm sure there's some, but I don't know any really who are about open borders, the idea of having no sovereignty, like just having no one at the guard booth and people coming in. Like, I don't know any elected officials. There's someone in the Democratic base probably somewhere, but that's not what we're about either. And that's Democrats need to do a better job of that. Maybe gone to the border a lot. They keep saying open border, but here we are at the border. Look at all security. It's a lie to say it's an open border. It's not an open border.
They tried that. Democrats did that back during the campaign, and it was largely ignored by the press.
The press wanted who they wanted. So, yeah. Thom, what do you make of the Zoran-Trump meeting? Like, is there anything bigger you take away from it? Because it really got people just stunned. It made a lot of coverage over the weekend. Every panel was watching. I don't watch cable news a lot, but I was at the gym and I listened, and a lot of discussions about it. But what's your take on it?
Yeah. I think that, number one, it highlights the fact that Donald Trump has no political philosophy. About the only the only politically consistent thing through the only two politically consistent things throughout his entire life have been, number one, his hatred of non-white people and his dismissal of women, and number two, his belief that tariffs are the way to solve America's deindustrialization. And on the tariff thing, he's got a point. He just doesn't. He's not smart enough to know how to do it or do it right. But I think that because he doesn't. If he had been a Richard Nixon or a Barry Goldwater or a Ronald Reagan or a George Bush, who actually have a conservative philosophy, they actually have you would never open a grocery store that's government run. That's socialism. You would never give free buses because people have to work to, the old Rush Limbaugh. Right. What do you do for a man when he's down? You kick him, otherwise he'll never get up. Right. Right. I mean, those guys had a philosophy. It's not one I agree with, but it was consistent. It could be articulated. There were books written about it. The party followed. Trump has no philosophy. So Mondami, wins big. He's a star. Everybody's like, oh my God. And even Trump voters are voting for him. And Trump looks at this and goes, hey, I want a piece of this. And he used to be a Democrat. He used to be in favor of minimum wages and unions and stuff, or at least he gave it lip service. So right. I don't think it was particularly difficult for Trump to say, yeah, let's make New York great again.
It's interesting to see. We're going to see how it plays out. What I didn't see is Zoran got in. I live here. But what happened is Zoran did not get. There's no one left who was like, why did you meet with him? At least no one I know. Or why were you smiling with him and all that kind of stuff. It's not like Zoran changed anything. If you watch it closely, he stood there and Trump, he prays on him because of what happened in private before whatever was said, or Trump's calculation is it looks good for him to do this. Everything's about Trump. That's one. His philosophy, if anything, to me, Tom, is summed up by what's good for Trump. Right. What would Trump do? What helps Trump? So whatever it is, his calculation was, it's good for me to be really nice to him. If he thought it helped him more to be a jerk to Zoran, he would have been a jerk to him in front of everyone. He didn't care. His calculation was, it's not going to be good for me, and we're going to be cordial. So we're going to see if it plays out in the long run. I did enjoy the fact that the anti-Muslim bigots on the right were really upset. Laura Loomer and a lot of them are really, really angry about it. And I'm like, this is an added bonus to all of it. I didn't expect to see that, but I'm glad they're mad. They don't know what to do. And it goes to your point, Tom. Trump doesn't have a defined ideology. He is transactional in everything. So someone might have a defined ideology, and they're like, oh, he hates Muslims, so I love him. And all of a sudden he's hanging MBS at the White House, and Zoran's there, and he's saying good things. You're like, oh, no, what happened? He's transactional. His decision-making was, MBS is good for me. My family makes more money. Qatar gives me a plane. That's good. Zoran can help me politically. There's no ideology. There's nothing to hang their hat on.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, that's the essence of my analysis as well.
I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. I wonder what it leads to in the long run. So what do you make of Marjorie Taylor Greene? We didn't get to talk about it on the show tonight. I was going to open with that, but I felt like I had to go to open with the Comey, Tish James dismissal, and why. Because there's a lot of stuff that's packed into there. Because there was decisions last week that was sort of laid the groundwork for where we were going with the dismissal. But MTG resigns. You wrote about it. Greene's experiencing now the inevitable consequence of stochastic terrorism, the weapon of choice for Trump and the modern GOP. But do you think she caved? Do you think, again, here's someone who has her own calculation of what's good for her, and leaving now is a good thing for her, whatever she wants to do going forward?
Of course. I think the big lesson of it that the press is completely missing, and was the essence of the article that you referenced, is that when she was attacking people in just bizarre ways. I mean, she was out there and, running around saying terrible things, saying that Ilhan Omar, should be arrested and sent back to Somalia, and, Rashida Tlaib and all this other racist stuff. Nobody blinked an eye. She never had to worry about her life. She strutted around New York or Washington, D.C. like she owned the city, didn't have a problem. Donald Trump criticizes her, and within 24 hours, she's getting death threats, and she's, within 48 hours, she's hired private security. I think that, that shows the difference between Democrats and Republicans. I think that's an important point. With regard to why MTG is doing what she's doing, first off, she came from a fairly wealthy family. She inherited a business, and she's done well. She's made a lot of money, apparently, day trading in Congress too. Particularly defense stocks, or at least so I'm reading. I mean, I'm no expert on it, but I think she's not in need of anything. Although AOC pointed out that December 5th is 3 days after her congressional pension vests. You have to be in Congress for 5 years or a certain number of days before you get a pension for the rest of your life. And she hits that date on December 2nd. And so for the rest of her life, if she waits 3 days after December 2nd, or any number of days after December 2nd, she gets a pension for life, a monthly pension for life, and free health care for life. And
I would like that.
Yeah.
That's an incentive to run for Congress.
Yeah, well, yeah. And I think that there's a lot of Republicans who do run for Congress just for that reason, or at least that's one of the big sweeteners. The other thing is that there's speculation that she wants to run for governor of Georgia. Brian Kemp has been term limited. So that's a possibility. There's a possibility that she wants to run for the Senate. I mean, she may have much higher aspirations, or maybe she just wants to go back to running her business. The other possibility is that, and apparently there's a lot of this going on, according to, some of the people in Congress. Ro Khanna mentioned this to me a little while ago, that there are a number of Republicans who are going to be bailing in the next, you're going to see in the next 6 months, because they see this blue wave coming. And number one, if many of them are facing serious primary challengers from both their right and the center. And the primary challengers from the center probably represent a greater threat to many of them, and might represent a greater threat to Marjorie Taylor Greene. And then secondly, even if they survive the primary, there's a very good chance they won't survive the general election. And I don't know how many points her district, Trump won her district by, or she won her district by. But, and that's a number that I should probably look up before I pontificate about this. But, that's another possibility too, is that she's just reading the same, or, feeling the same headwinds that the Democrats have, or tailwinds or whatever, that many of her colleagues are. What are your thoughts on it, Dean?
I have no thoughts, Tom. No, of course I have thoughts. I'm kidding. Why would I have thoughts about politics? Never have thought about it at all. I think, first of all, it's interesting that she got some garbage from MAGA and she quit. Like, she is the queen of the MAGA Karens. Like, she wants to see the manager right away, and the manager doesn't want to talk to her. So she goes, "I'm leaving. I'm going to take my bleached hair and my butch body," as Jasmine Crockett said about her, and leave. Meanwhile, Ilhan Omar, who I've talked to many, many times, got a tsunami of death threats because of Marjorie Taylor Greene, because of Donald Trump. They chanted "send her back" about Ilhan Omar at Trump rallies. She didn't ever quit. She didn't cry. She told me, "I don't cry about this stuff." She goes, "He doesn't deserve my tears." She also came from a refugee camp and to America and came here as a teenager and made it all the way to Congress. She's got thick skin. Jasmine Crockett, I thought it was great. She slammed over the weekend, MTG, like all the stuff that we get, and you can't take it for a week or two and you're leaving. So I think it shows that Democratic women are much stronger than MAGA women who just want to be celebrated. And the minute tough gets going, they go home. They slither out of here. And that's what MTG did to me. It's like that the political calculation. I'm not sure what she wants to do next. She denied she wants to run for president. I don't know. It could be she disappears. We've had people, there have been other like bigger than life people in Congress who leave and never come back. From Minnesota, when she ran, Paul Ryan, but also who were like more like her or more bombastic and divisive. She was from Minnesota. She would demonize Keith Ellison all the time. She ran for president once, and now her name escapes me. The horrible woman, horrible person. And
the one who was into gay, her husband did gay conversion therapy.
I think so. That's her. Exactly. That's her.
Yeah,
from Minnesota. Right, everyone at home knows who it is.
It's very memorable.
She was bigger than life. She got up a lot of oxygen. Michelle Bachmann. So Michelle Bachmann got all this love, and she had all. She ran for president, all that, and then left Congress. And that's it, gone. I mean, she's doing whatever she's doing, but some of them do just disappear. They go make money as lobbyists. Some, like Marcella Greensworth, anywhere from a few million to 25 million, depending on what you read about her.
Right.
Maybe she really's like, I had enough of this garbage. It didn't get to what I wanted, and I want to go do something different. So we will find out. But I kept telling people she's still despicable. She hasn't changed. Oh, she's nice on. She wants ACA subsidies. She's horrible. She's horrible in every way. There's nothing redeeming about her. And any Democrat who says nice things about her now, it's kind of beyond me. Like, I don't care if she lines up with us on one issue. Oh, ACA subsidies. She's terrible. Bigot.
Well, Trump just
vile.
flipped on ACA subsidies. Did you see that?
Yeah. Well, he did because he's lost control of his own party.
That's right.
That's what's happening. Like, this is.
Well,
it's kind of remarkable. He's expedited.
Yeah, and he knows that in January when these new rates hit, people are going to be people are already seriously pissed off. I mean, she was the leading edge of that, and but he's going to combine it with a call for legislation that allows people to buy junk insurance policies so that they'll think they're insured when they're not. Which is something the ACA outlawed. We'll be back to pre-existing conditions as a thing.
That would be the worst thing for anyone who ever had any kind of physical ailment in your life. Yep. And if the Republicans had their way to return to exclusions for pre-existing conditions, or I may have told you this. I mean, when I was a lawyer, I worked at a big firm. I represented health insurance companies, and I was pre-ACA. And some of the work we did was to deny. We didn't do the denials in-house. They did it, but was to defend against litigation against the insurance company. And if you didn't declare every health issue you had on your policy, our job first was to subpoena all your medical records, and you found one thing that you had hidden, then we'd want to do, it's called rescission of the policy, like, void ab initio, like it's gone. There's no policy at all. We'll give you your premiums back, but we don't have to cover your new cancer or new ailment, even if it's almost unrelated to that. Or people were just not insured. Insurance companies said, we're not going to insure you. Go to the high-risk pool, which was bullshit, ridiculously expensive, and had exclusions in it as well. We don't want to go back to that. And the insurance companies are making a ton of money. They don't need that, but
that's the world that the Republicans want to return us to. And it's been what?
I agree.
15 years since Obamacare. I think a lot of people have completely forgotten how terrible that was. I mean, it was just
that was the worst part of it. Yeah. So last couple of things, Tom. What do you make of the dismissal today of the charges against Comey and Tish James? They're both without prejudice, but you look at. I'm not sure if you looked at it or not, but when you get a picture of this, some of it's sold to us as incompetence by Lindsay Halligan and Bondi, but I think you have to look deeper. I think it's more malicious. It's more the sense of we don't have to follow the rules. We don't have to follow the law. Trump will pardon us. We can do whatever we want. The boss wants this. Go indict that person. Don't even show the new indictment to the grand jury. Just get someone to sign it and hand it in. No prosecutor I know has ever said they ever saw that in their life anywhere. So there's a degree of incompetence, but also no sense that I should ask to find out what the right thing is. I don't have to because Donald Trump's got my back. And I think I think they should be disbarred. They should both be disbarred.
I agree, and I absolutely agree, and we know that this started with malice. We all saw Trump's what he thought was a private memo to Pam Bondi demanding it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I was curious. I mean, you're the attorney, and I'm not. I was curious. The dismissal without prejudice means you can bring the charges back, but the statute of limitations is expired now. Do you expect anything to happen there? And is this appealable?
Well, it's going to be appealable because it's a dismissal, because it's definitive as to the case. So they are going to appeal it. As to the statute of limitations, I never did practice of federal felony, like criminal felony work, but I had Jill Weinbanks on the show Friday, who former federal prosecutor, Watergate prosecutor, and then she said something today that was also backed up by other former prosecutors. There's a window of 6 months, even if the statute of limitations is run. If you got the indictment before the statute of limitations, and there's a procedural dismissal, not a substantive one, then you can refile it within 6 months, and it's called tolling. It tolls the statute of limitations to allow you to follow it. So
that's why Comey today said I expect them to come after me again.
Right? Yeah, it's not gonna end here. They'll continue. Tish James, obviously, they're gonna refile unless Trump makes a calculation. He got his pound of flesh. He caused them pain. They had to go to get a lawyer. They had to go to enter a guilty plea, not guilty plea, I should say. who knows with this sick guy? Like, I have no idea. Maybe he's like, I got what I wanted. I don't care. Just let it go. Whatever. I mean, not to be nice, did it fulfill his need of causing pain? That's all this was about. I don't know.
Makes absolute sense. It makes absolute sense.
So last thing, because right before you came on, we saw that Pentagon is opening an investigation to Senator Mark Kelly.
Yeah.
So we're going to have Mark Kelly investigated. But you wrote a really great article for the Hartmann Report about if threatening to hang members of Congress isn't impeachable, what is about Donald Trump? And apparently it's not for Democrats, but share a little bit. And what do you think Democrats should do? Should they be calling for impeachment based on what he said?
Absolutely. And there was a big demonstration in D.C. over the weekend calling for him. People are starting to talk about it. And I think that there are, well, I know, I don't know who they are, but I've had one senator and one member of Congress, tell me, one on the air and one off the air, that there are a number of senators who are very deeply regretting their failure to impeach Trump last time around, and given another opportunity, may well go for it. So I'm talking Republican senators. So,
right, I understand.
Obviously, there's no way Mike Johnson's going to allow an impeachment resolution. I don't know if impeachment resolutions can be done by
discharge petition.
By a discharge. Thank you. By a discharge petition. I'm assuming they can. I don't know why they can't. I mean, it applies to any kind of legislation, right? So maybe it could happen. I mean, maybe Marge Green would even be in on it. I think it's time to seriously start talking.
Funny.
And if nothing else, it gives us 12 months, early until the next swearing in, to get ready, because it's time to get this guy out of office. And if we wait until next year, if we're successful in doing it next year, and we can get a new Speaker of the House at the same time, if Hakeem Jeffries, for example, is the new Speaker of the House, and you impeach both Trump and Vance, because I see them as co-conspirators in most of this stuff. In fact, in some ways, Vance has been worse than Trump with his rhetoric. Then, you get Hakeem Jeffries as president, which would be fine with me.
I think it's an aspirational
I'll
be as nice as I can.
Hey, we can dream, Dean.
Right, you should.
So much reality started as dreams. I mean, just
right.
Look
yes, we can.
Half the stuff you see was imagined by somebody before it was created.
I'm not mocking it. I'm saying it's aspirational. I like it very much. By the way, Representative Al Green over the weekend at the Remove the Regime rally, because my friend Jessica Denson was one of the organizers. Al Green said he's going to introduce new impeachment resolutions, and he hasn't been on my show to say it, but what my understanding is the impeachment resolution has a certain privilege to it, and it triggers at least, like, it can trigger the first step where they have to vote on should there be a debate on or something like that. That's what happened last time. And so at least that, and maybe this time you've got Democrats who don't cower, they're feeling strong, and they go forward, if it's articulated well, the impeachment resolution. So we might see it more likely in the new year, according to Jessica. I didn't watch the press conference when he did it, but he spoke about it. So, all right, Tom, I'm going to let you go, my friend. It's great to see you. HartmannReport.com is the Substack. I read it every day. Sincerely, sign up for it. It's free. And Tom, I look forward to chatting with you on your show. And welcome back to America. I'm glad you made it back.
Thank you, Dean. And thanks for being there for me. And it's always great talking with you.
Me and Danny Savalas, your legal experts, Obeidallah and Savalas. We'll be doing commercials on the subway. You're going to see us. All right, thanks. Have a great day, my friend. Bye-bye.
Thank you.